even here, oh, many years ago, back in '03 or something like that, there was, I think, a couple of buildings, and you got a kind of a campus now.
Yeah.
Where are we now, and what else is involved in Sonex Inc.?
Right. Well, it's interesting because, you know, as the business has grown, so of course is the facility. So when the Sonex project first started getting going in 1997 timeframe, this hangar was the only hangar.
This one was the only one at first.
Yeah. Okay, and so it at the time, John was building the three original Sonex prototypes, and he was also restoring, I think, 2 or 3 Cubs paper vagabonds. So, which was, the business that he was at the time.
It was a pretty full place then.
It was a very full place.
And not with the fancy lunch counter either,
Right. So yeah, none of the offices were in here, and of course the service counter. The Hornet's Nest Cafe is where we're sitting right now.
I love it. It's very homey. Actually.
Yeah, and this was actually one of the earliest additions to the hangar. At the time, airport management at Whitman Field back then was a little bit controversial, and who can't identify with that on their own airport?
Absolutely, almost everyone.
I don't know when it's not controversial, no matter who the manager is. But this seemed to be the gathering place where, the lunchtime, political airport talk
Is that right?
gathering place. So it was aptly named the Hornet's Nest Cafe because you're getting in a hornet's nest every time you entered into the discussion.
I wondered where the name came from.
So yeah, and we even have one of our local friends here in AME named Dr. Green. We had a Hornet's Nest Cafe T-shirt on the cover of Flying Magazine here in Oshkosh, and you can see the back of his shirt with the Hornet's Nest logo. And you can only get the Hornet's Nest T-shirt if you've been in the Hornet's Nest.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's an exclusive club here. Club Sonex.
Right. So it's just a nice gathering place, and we invite, especially our friends over at EAA, whenever they have a new employee. Sonex is one of the places that they like to bring by, and they'll bring their lunch, and while we're all here eating, and we'll get to know them, and give them a little tour around the place.
That's excellent. Good stuff. So now, where else is the facility besides here in the original birthplace of Sonex?
We have essentially 5 buildings, although 2 of them are 2 connected buildings. And we'll take you around to our flight center, and that's connected to our research and development center, which is probably the most interesting stop on the tour, and then our warehouse facilities.
Well, why don't we go have a little tour and see everything Sonex that we can see in a short video.
Right, sounds good.
All right. So we changed buildings now. Now we got a bunch of yellow airplanes, and I guess I've always wanted to ask, why yellow airplanes? They're all yellow airplanes. Well, almost all. What's the story?
Well, it's the modern Cub. That's the concept behind when John first decided he wanted to paint. At the time, it was the Waiex and Xenos prototypes when they first came.
Were those the first 2?
Those are the first 2. Okay. And before that, we had them all polished. And and John just really loved the concept of yellow and doing restorations on Cubs and Vagabonds. Of course, he was familiar.
Sure. Okay, you mentioned that. Right?
And it fits the simplest philosophy of design of airplanes.
So now you got one that's red. Tell me why red and what that's about.
Yeah. So the Sonex B-model, if you don't stare at Sonex aircraft all day long like we do, or maybe someone who's currently building, you might not catch some of the subtleties and the differences between a A-model Sonex and a B-model Sonex.
We're standing in front of an A?
Yeah, we are. In fact, we're standing in front of the very first Sonex ever made.
Is that right? Okay.
It's the SX1.
Looking mighty good still.
It is. Yeah, I got a little freshening up and a paint job a few years ago, and some new upholstery. So with the red, we just wanted to show that this is something new. You have not seen this before when you walk by our booth at Oshkosh.
Right. Yeah. Red's like this is raw.
So hey, wait, that's a new airplane. That's what we wanted to do.
Okay. Well, you succeeded in that. Without going into every detail, what makes the B different? Give me a couple of the highlights of B versus A.
Sure, absolutely. The biggest change is that in the A model, or as we sometimes call them, the legacy model airplanes, the fuselage sides and longerons begin to taper right behind the seat towards the firewall. And with the B model, all we did was we made these longerons parallel. So it's got a larger firewall, larger
This part here is parallel back to the same point?
Right, back to the same point. So the fuselage and the
Does that mean this part is wider?
It is.
Okay.
It is. Yeah. So the cowling is actually what begins to turn in and get a little bit smaller.
Okay. And what was the point of that? Why do that?
Right. So the whole idea of the B model is to give pilots a little more space, a little more breathing room. It's not a drastic change in cockpit size, but it is very noticeable, especially when you experience it when you sit in the airplane. With the tapering fuselage, although we haven't made the total width of the airplane wider, you can see that with the tapering that even as you get past the seat cushions to your shoulder, the tapering fuselage is already starting to impinge on your shoulders. It's worse at the hips. It's worse at the knees. So at the B model, with it being parallel, it just kind of opens things up really nicely.
So you're mainly noticing that sort of from the lower end of the trunk.
Yeah, and even a little bit in the shoulders, although it's not a huge effect there, but there is a difference. The other thing that we've done is we've taken the structural cross tie at the first, basically first turtleback conformer station, which was the seat back, and we've moved it back by about 2 inches.
Okay.
So what that does is allows taller pilots to be able to sit just a little bit more reclined, and it also just gives, again, a little bit more room between you and your chest.
Does it also give you more height from bottom to head?
A little bit, yeah. We were able to lower the seat pan just a little bit further from what we had already done through the years in doing mod packages to lower the seat with the Sonex was first.
So what size guy can sit comfortably in it?
Well, just like build time.
Yeah.
That depends on everybody because everybody has different body geometry.
Yeah.
So we have pilots who are really tall in the torso, and those are really tall in the legs. The folks that are tall, that fit the best, are the ones that are most evenly proportioned.
Okay.
So we've had guys as tall as 6'4" fit in the airplanes.
Okay.
And especially the B model and things like our 1X single place. But those are the most evenly proportioned people. If you have someone who's all legs, their knees are going to be up into the panel, versus someone who's all torso, they may not have the head width. But we've had a lot of really tall guys get in the airplane and come out really surprised that they fit.
Well, you've done a whole bunch of different engines, and in fact, you guys make your own engine too, or supply an engine. That part's cool. We'll touch on that. You got a jet engine. I'm looking over your shoulder at the jet project. This one here is your electric project. Now, you had a whole bunch of stuff about that, but you've been busy with some other projects. So where are we at on the electric, and tell me a little bit about what it was and what it may be in the future.
Right. So you probably recall right around 2007, we were actually one of the very first companies to announce that we were going to be
Absolutely
on electric propulsion, and you haven't heard much of anything from us on it. What we have here is the E-Flight electric-powered Waiex prototype, and everything that you see here in terms of motor, controller, battery system, management is all proprietary, developed and owned by Sonex. So there's nothing here that is an off-the-shelf product.
Really?
And there's actually
a lot of extra work.
Yep, a lot. And the reason for it is that we had some very specific requirements for the project. A lot of it came down to even things that we anticipate that would be in some sort of regulations in the future as these engines are out there in the GA fleet and even in certified environments. We wanted to be able to cover all the things that we knew were anticipated were going to be concerns, even down to safety systems for first responders, for example, in accident situations, so that there's no high voltage floating around when somebody is trying to be rescued from an airplane. The system is still a very good system in our minds. They've been through quite a few iterations. So right now, this is probably about version 7 of the engine.
Oh, really?
The motor, excuse me. And the controller package is about version 12. I believe we're on version 13 or 14 of the controller.
Really?
And
it's got more development behind it than I knew then.
Yeah, exactly. And the motor is this is the 7th, I believe the 8th or 9th. I think we had one in between. And so, always trying to refine the system to be able to handle, lots of electrical energy that we need to handle. Even, it gets down to things like, RF, things, and, shielding and all those sorts of things. And that's part of even just the commutation, controlling the engine. It is a brushless motor, so, we don't have brushes to commutate the motor, so a lot of the controller's job is to handle the commutation, or essentially the timing of the motor, if you were to apply it to internal combustion terms. And we isolate everything here between high voltage core, the firewall, and then the low voltage components of the controller that are in the cockpit space.
Okay, so where's the future of this project? Is it going to go forward, or are you,
of course, yeah, it's
just piddling with it, or what are you doing?
Yeah, right. Well, it's still definitely in development. Most of the development work is actually not going on here in Oshkosh. It's happening with our two primary engineers on the project. One would be Pete Buck, who was our previous lead engineer out in California. His day job is to work for the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works. And actually Andrew Pierce, who's one of our builders, but his career is in electronics and circuit boards and that sort of thing. So that is moving forward with the new versions of the motor and controller. And to be honest, a lot of this hasn't been pushed on the front burner for us because of the relatively slow rate of improvement in the energy density of the storage systems. And people often ask us, well, why is the system on a Waiex? And why isn't it on your motor glider? And the answer to that, and the answer to that is that we wanted to show this package on an airplane that actually performs at some speeds, because there's been electric propulsion systems put in motor gliders in the past.
Quite a few. It's an obvious thing to do. They're clean,
right?
So you're using less energy to shuttle them through the air, but it's not so practical. 50-foot span thing, you can't even put in most hangars, so then what?
Exactly.
So you're kind of going beyond that to, hey, you can someday take this and fly somewhere.
Well, and even as in terms of the available power, we wanted to show that this has capability to do aerobatics, because you have so much torque available.
And no fuel handling issues.
Right, exactly. It doesn't care if it's inverted. The point of the system is that we want it to be able to accept pretty much any energy storage system, as we said from the beginning in 2006.
Well, and they will change.
Right, so
fact,
whether it
hopefully
be
they will change.
batteries, fuel cells, a combination of both, a hamster on a wheel, the system, the motor and the controller, that's the power plant package, that's the important part. You just need to be able to plug power into it, and this turns the problem.
So we've now moved to the R&D shop in the quick build facility here at Sonex, and we're standing in front of an airplane that's pretty complete here, but I can see that it's obviously a case and it's a work in process. Tell me a little bit more about what I'm looking at here, Mark.
So out at the show, we showed you the B-model Waiex as a tail dragger airplane, and that's the first B-model that we finished and got flying and showed at Sun and Funning here in Oshkosh. This is the sister ship to that airplane. This is the tri-gear version of the airplane in Sonex form. So the B-model Sonex. And of course the Sonex and the Waiex can both be either tri-gear or tail dragger. And we're just finishing this airplane up, and we'll probably fly at some point this fall. But most of our focus has been on flying and testing the Waiex that we already have completed.
So when I look down on this one here, I'm seeing some of what you're talking about. The way that the fuselage is organized, and then the nose, the fiberglass part here, sort of doing the taper that used to be done with the overall longeron.
Right, and we spent an inordinate amount of time on designing this cowling and to make it look right.
People never understand that, I know. Me too, but it looks like, well, how hard was that?
Right.
It wasn't easy.
It wasn't. No, of course not. And this is the first cowling that we've ever designed completely in CAD solids. This is the first cowling that John didn't have to carve out of a big block of foam.
Is that right? Okay.
Absolutely.
No foam in this one.
Right. Well, we had a CNC router carve a block of foam to make
he just
make
didn't
the
have
plug,
to.
but he didn't have to do it and shape it and make sure everything was symmetrical. So this is actually one of the most beautiful, perfectly symmetrical, easy-fitting cowls that we've ever had. And it's really a piece of art. Quick building is something we've only done in the last probably 4 years, I believe. And our quick build kits are audited by the FAA National Kit Evaluation Team, because they do have to, we do have to prove that they are legal according to the 51% rule. Our quick builds are 48% and change. They are literally as complete as we're legally allowed to provide an amateur build kit. So the wing is complete except for the control surfaces. The fuselage is complete. We don't put it on its gear. We do have enough percentage points available to install a canopy. Like as we talked about before, builders typically get frustrated with the plexiglass, so we're able to do that for you.
Well, you have your new B model, and we talked about quick build, and I'm guessing we're looking at one here.
Yeah, this is actually one of the first customer quick build B model kits to be delivered. Actually, it's set to be delivered in a couple of weeks. We've got just a few final finishing tasks to do on the kit. But this is essentially what what you get with a quick build. You get, as we were saying, the completed fuselage, the completed wings. If you're buying them together and not separately as sub-kit quick builds, then we can actually rig the wings to the fuselage, which is a big value add. And then we'll have a canopy installed on the airplane as well, so that's done for you.
You know, to someone like me anyway, I'm not a typical home builder, but if I was going to start, I would feel like, well, I already got something here. Now I can get into it. Send me a bunch of sheet metal, I'm going to go, whoa, I don't know if I'm up for this. It's this I could possibly get my hands around.
It sure does help with the excitement factor of the project. You know, this shows up at your house, and you've got something that looks like an airplane. You can already sit in it and make airplane noises. Yeah, I mean, this is a project that can fit in your life better. You're trading the upgraded cost of the kit for your time, which is very valuable. So you don't have to necessarily wait until you're retired to build a home-built airplane. You can get this done and still, you know, have your job and your family and your kids. And we're appealing to, as I said, younger builders with quick builds. And that's one of the big advantages of quick build kits, like kits that Sonex and other kit manufacturers provide.
Looking down the long tube here, so what am I seeing?
Yeah, so this is the tail cone of the Sonex, and in this case a B-model. And there's a couple of things going on here. For one, you can see match tool, where essentially the idea of match tool tooling is that you have a part here, for example, when it comes to this cross-tie piece, and the holes that match the skin on the exterior of the airplane are matched. So you're able to just put it together with some Clecos right out of the box. The entire airplane is essentially a box with fairings, whether it be the wing, the tail, the forward fuselage, even the tail stabilizer surfaces as well. There's no complex geometry going on in anything. The wings are Hershey bar wings, so they stall root first. We don't have to put any washout into them, so everything's just level and square. In the case of the fuselage here, we actually use carpenter's framing squares to check rib stations as we go. We'll even go as far as to drill and Cleco them together so that we have H pattern, and we can kind of check as we go and just make sure that things are staying in alignment as we And the other important thing is that you'll notice on Sonex aircraft, they all have flat bottoms. So the airplane, with our sloping canopy and windshield and the flat bottom, essentially has a little bit of lifting body effect going into the design. So that's one of the things that allows the airplane to fly so slow, but also have very high top speeds.
And so slow means what? Give me some specs on a finished Model B all done.
Sure. You know, a Sonex, so whether it be an A model or a B model, will start at 40 miles an hour with flaps, 46 miles an hour.
4 knots or whatever that is.
And at the top end, I mean, we have a BME of 197 miles.
Wow. Yeah, that's a really wide range. Really. So Mark, I have a friend who's just bought one of your kits actually, and he's starting to work on it. And I visited his house, and he doesn't have a big hangar like this.
Right.
He probably has room for a table like this in his garage.
Yeah.
Can he do the work to build one of your airplanes on a table like this?
When I work on my project at home, actually, I have even a little bit of a shallower table because I have it up against a wall. You notice a lot of our projects here on a pair of sawhorses.
Right.
You'll need, a pair of sawhorses.
Walk us through a little bit about what the builder typically needs, Mark.
Really simple tools required to build a Sonex. Probably one of the most important ones is a pneumatic pop rivet gun. But there's a lot of rivets. They're stainless steel, so you don't want to look like Popeye.
I pulled a few rivets, and then after a while, one arm gets really stuck.
Exactly. So, and this is nothing exotic. This is actually a very inexpensive rivet you can buy at common hardware stores. There's just simple stuff here. And so, for instance, just a set of straight tin snips, and then the left and right hand tin snips. And even with a kit project, it's good to be able to have, you'll have to trim something here and there, and to be 51% compliant, again, there's a handful of parts that we still. So, yeah, for deburring or shaping metal, for instance, if we're, let's say, scratch building, and we're making those parts out of, aluminum angle, you're going to need something like a Vixen file, which is really great for deburring and shaping, especially extrusion and thicker types of aluminum. Smaller files also come in handy, like a round chainsaw type file to get into like corners to make sure that they're radiused. And that's really handy. Deburring, of course, we talked about that quite a bit. So this, for instance, is what's called a speed deburring tool, and it's just for getting into a hole that you just drilled and through the gooseneck and knock the hanging chads off of the Cleco pliers, we talked about Clecos before. This is the set of pliers that the Cleco goes into. As you squeeze this together, it basically makes this little bayonet smaller. The neck can slide off.
I see, okay. That's why you need a tool for it.
Right, we put that in the hole, and this retracts and expands at the same time. Tools list on our website. We actually also have a 3-part video about tools. And we separated it out into the kind of the need to have versus the nice to have tools, the things that are really helpful but aren't completely totally essential. Yeah, to outfit the shop for a basic build, we're talking about a few $100s. You're also going to need a few power tools, like a bandsaw actually comes in really handy, and just a little 12-inch benchtop model. Okay. The same with a small benchtop drill press.
So a few $100 in tooling, almost no jigging actually, but some work surface.
Right.
A certain amount of space.
Yeah, some good lighting.
Yeah, that would probably be very important. And none of that sounds particularly exotic then. So we talked about quick build, we talked about materials, we talked about tools, we talked about work surface, space, lighting, other things that you need, but you gotta have one more thing, and that's some directions.
So we're really proud of the plans that we use for the Sonex line of aircraft, widely regarded as some of the best plans in the business. We use very consistent drawing conventions through the drawing package. We use plans only instead of a plans and a manual that have to be cross-referenced between.
All my sheets we're seeing on the table, maybe these aren't assembly drawings.
Yeah. These are examples of B-model plans that are actually being checked for quality.
Yeah, see they got some red
before they're going to be finally published for builders. So this will be part of an update package for our existing builders whose kits have already shipped, and new builders, of course, will be getting these included right away. You can see from looking through the drawings that everything's pretty self-explanatory. We have some text on the drawings to explain things where it's required. On really complicated pages of plans, like for instance, rigging the control surfaces, control system for the airplane, we actually have a column of numbered directions right on that page. The point is that we want people as much as possible to only have to work on one page.
Not go back and forth to various reference documents.
Yeah.
All right, so a couple 100 hours for the minimum, and for somebody that's working at it, maybe has some aptitude and other things, and then there's other details. But do you offer a builder assist program, Mark? Does Sonex offer a builder assist?
We don't, and a big reason for that is that these are such simple airplanes to build, especially with the quick build kits available. But folks who do want to use builder assist can certainly do so, especially now that we have the new, relatively new National Kit Evaluation Team system, where we have a very well-defined checklist, and you can see how much room you have left to get help with things. For instance, avionics installations, a very small percentage of the checklist. You can hire out essentially your entire panel, and it's not going to push you over the edge of the regulation.
Sure, we talked to our friends, did a video with our friends at Aircraft Spruce, who they have a whole shop. They'll do the whole panel. All the wiring is done. I imagine they can't do that if that would be a problem on the KETC program.
Right, exactly.
So I've looked at a lot of different airplane companies in my career, Mark, and I think I can count on 2 fingers the number of companies that also supply engines, right, in any way. Jabiru is one, and Sonex is the other. And if there's another one, I just haven't discovered it yet. But you don't just sell a whole engine. You sell an engine kit, right, which I think is just about unique in aviation.
Yeah.
So tell me a little more about what that means.
Yeah, so, we are all about education as well as the recreation part of home building. That's the whole reason that home building exists.
Absolutely.
With a kit engine like the Aero V line of engines, you're really enhancing your building experience and your depth of knowledge by putting it together from a kit. And as we always say, you're stuffing money in your pocket every time you fire up the engine. You have the ability to do your own maintenance work, even things in terms of overhaul tasks, and you're not paying an A&P to do that for you or an engine shop somewhere. The Aero V engine kit has been developed over more than 40 years' time, as John has been working with VW conversions in one form or another, from even the pre-Sonnery days with, when he built his first Genie's Teeny and modified that airplane heavily. It's basically a 2180cc big bore and stroke, essentially a racing configuration engine. The most common configuration displacement of the VW engine that you see in modern times. And it's all supported by the enormous hobbyist aftermarket for things like sand rails and dune buggies and the like.
Oh, sure, okay, all right.
So multiple catalog companies out there. All the parts are still in production new, including the cases still being cast, currently being cast in Brazil. And there are catalogs where you can get all of these core parts. You don't necessarily have to buy them from Sonex that support the ground-based vehicle, the racing industry.
Sure. Okay, so a kit engine, there are people that will say, like me, that would say, all right, building a kit airplane, that's one thing. I've seen enough of that maybe I could get my mind around it. Building a kit engine? How I'd just soon build my own computer,
right?
Which some people have done.
Yes.
So I know there's people out there like that.
Yeah.
I may not be one of them, but what do you tell somebody like me who kind of goes, I don't know, could I build a kit engine?
The idea of it is understandably can be very intimidating, but honestly, after you've spent all the time to build an airplane, the engine is an incredibly simple process.
Is that right?
Yeah. It's there's no fabrication; it's all assembly. And we have a very detailed step-by-step manual and a companion video that actually just recently reshot and reorganized to be an even expanded version, all high def, and takes you step-by-step through the process. And time frame to build, an Aero V engine, if you've got a little bit of engine experience, it can literally be a weekend project.
Really?
Or something that maybe you're going to take a week or two. But
I would have thought much more than that.
Yeah,
that's interesting. All of what we've been talking about is what I'll call it, just a standard engine.
Right.
You have a turbo version too, though.
Correct. So we started out with a normally aspirated 2180cc VW, which is between us and other VW conversions out there, essentially an 80 horsepower engine. Well, now we have a turbocharged version of the Aero V, which is producing 100 horsepower on the ground at sea level type field elevations, and allows us to carry more of that power up to altitude with us.
That's the value of a turbo significantly, not that it adds so much power, but that it maintains the power as you rise up into thinner and thinner air.
Yeah, we're carrying atmosphere with us, compressing
A good way to put it.
turbocharger.
Okay, great. We had quite an excellent tour here of Sonex, looked at a lot of different aspects of it, but we had to come and have a look at here. This is the warehouse where you've got all your stuff.
Yeah.
What all happens here, and where do some of these component parts come from?
Yeah, we have a really large supplier network, mostly actually here in the state of Wisconsin, which we're really proud to be able to do. And that helps with transportation costs as well.
Sure.
Helps keep the customers' costs low. We make a few things here, like wing ribs. We do forming of those, some secondary forming operations on laser cut blanks that come in, leading edges of wings and tails, for example, forming here, make canopies. Mostly bring things in from outside suppliers to our engineering spec. Most parts are completely custom to us, but we're leveraging their expertise and their manpower and letting them maintain their machinery, right, and play to their strengths, and keeps us a lean and nimble company, and we're able to react quickly to whatever the current sales trends are. So we bring them in, quality check them, and ship them out. We do stock all of the parts at a certain, at whatever the appropriate level is per part. We do our best to have service parts available for those who are building and they need a replacement of individual parts, so that we do have them, and they're not necessarily custom ordered with long lead times.
In the whole project here, how many people are busy with this? I see a lot of stuff back here. So
yeah. So we have a warehouse staff that kind of fluctuates depending on the time of the year. The purchasing and warehouse.
Yeah, is there a busy time of the year for parts supply?
Well, it fluctuates. Summer typically is busier.
Recreation.
As the airplanes are getting flown. Winter is busy in a different ways when everybody's in their workshops working on stuff.
Okay.
And,
so different kinds of parts go out then versus when they're using them.
Yeah, we tend to ship a higher volume of actual full kits after big events like airshows, AirVenture, for example, right in our backyard. So we have a full-time purchasing and warehouse manager. We have some part-time staff that help with getting things packed and quality checked and some of the secondary operations out there.
Cool. How many people in the whole company again? I think you said 15?
About 15. And
seems like kind of a lot to do for 15 people.
It is. We really work hard to keep the size of the staff small and be as efficient as we can. And that helps us offer the best performance per dollar, which is what...
Well, you've got great prices on the kits. We won't go into that. You can find all that on the website, I know. Got a great website too, by the way. I know it's some of your work or all of your work, but anyway, there's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah.
So we want to go to that now as we wrap up our video here. Tell us where we go on the web to find all these things I just bragged about for you.
So SonexAircraft.com is our primary website covering especially our airframe stuff. If you're interested in the AeroVee engines and the other accessories that we make out of the Aero Conversions product line, it's aeroconversions.com.
Okay. And by the way, one last question on inventory.
Yeah.
All the airplanes that have been made under the Sonex brand, do you still supply parts for all of them?
We do, including the legacy model
Okay.
parts. As time goes on and some of the legacy model parts aren't stocked in inventory at the same levels, some things might become custom lead times, longer
You still
lead
supply
times,
them, but it
but
might
we
take
will supply them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say that's important to
Yes.
somebody, because airplanes last a long time if
Absolutely.
they're well maintained, and if you need a part, you gotta have a part.
It'll be based on whatever the current demand is for each individual part.
Great stuff. Well, I've got more, but you can find all that and lots of things about ultralights, light kits, light sport, all kinds of affordable aviation on buydanjohnson.com. Thanks for joining Mark Schaible and myself here in Oshkosh at the Sonex headquarters.
Thanks for being here, Dan.